We're now in chapter 28, verse 4. It's going to be on two sides of your source sheet, but this paragraph is dealing with the daily offering. Our prayers actually replace. We don't have it today, but we will one day when the temple is rebuilt soon in our day. We will again have two offerings. We each gave a half a shekel. Every Jew would give a half a shekel. It was put into a bank, and out of the bank they bought the daily offerings. These daily offerings atoned for the Jewish people. Every different thing, there's so many different things that atone. We were talking earlier today about the 8 garments of the Kohen Gadol, of the high priest. They each atone for something different.
All clean.
You know? And the different offerings atone for different types of sins. But no offering atones for innazid, intentional sins. You must do repentance. And of course, if it was totally accidental without the mind, so then you have no need to bring atonement for it. So this verse, when you see chapter 28, starting with verse 1, all the way till verse 8, we're going to examine it. And it also appears elsewhere in the Torah, in Parshat Tetzaveh. I mention it later where it is. Can't find it right now. Oh, I did put it on the source sheet, so we'll get to it. But it's word for word. Why is it mentioned twice? Why is it word for word? And what is it about the words that are going to bother us so much? So I just want to point out, if you look in verse 3, it says 2 a day as a continual offering, meaning every day. Shnayim liyom ola tamid. And then it says hakeves echad, you're going to do in the morning. 1 lamb you do in the morning. And then esa keves hasheni, the second one. Now we already have a problem. You don't say 1 and then you say second. You say first and then you say second. Or you say 1 and then you say 2. You don't mix, I don't know what it's called, but you don't mix the type of number system by saying first and second. That makes sense. Or 1 and 2, that makes sense. But you don't say 1 and then second. Follow me? We're going to see it similar to the way the first 7 days of creation. It says day 1, and then from then on it says 2nd day, 3rd day, 4th day, 5th day, 6th day, 7th day. So we're going to have the same problem going back to the Genesis story. But right now, we know there's 2 a day, and 1 will be in the morning, the second will be in the afternoon. And then it says, look at verse 8, the second you shall make in the afternoon. Now, I'm not bothered by the fact that it says second, because it does say, where? It does say in verse 7, regarding, it says 1 lamb, and we know it's talking about the first, again, 1 lamb, and then it says the second lamb, but we're not bothered by it. When it says 1 lamb, it doesn't say the morning. In other words, it mentions in the afternoon twice. So in the morning is mentioned once, and in the afternoon is mentioned twice. So we have, this is very important, we have the question and the observation of the Kliyakar. That it says 1 and then second. It shouldn't have. It should have said 1 and then 2, or first and then second. So we have an issue with that. And that it says in the morning once, and it says in the afternoon twice. Okay? So why? So the Kliyakar begins to explain and get really into the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts. So he mentions, I'll just read him again, because he's going to say what I already gave you a introduction to, that our verse said 1 lamb you make in the morning. But guess what? It says, and a second lamb. So why does it say second? It should have said first. Going back. If it says second, then you have to go back to the time it says 1, and it should say first, not 1. So that's, and he wants to know why that it only mentions the morning offering once, whereas the one in the afternoon, it's mentioned twice. I mean, guys, if you don't hear the answer, I don't think you're going to go to sleep tonight. So too, he mentions, we find in Exodus chapter 29, verses 39 through 41, exactly letter for letter, word for word. So he wants to resolve it by giving us this great introduction. If you go to Isaiah chapter 1, verse 21, that verse, the only thing we're really concentrating on is righteousness lodged in her. Tzedek yolim. The actual verse is talking about, Isaiah is talking about Jerusalem the way it used to be. What does it mean, the way it used to be? It used to have righteousness. But now, here we are, part 3. How has she become a harlot? We're talking about Jerusalem, a faithful city, full of justice. Meaning, how did it happen? This is the way she used to be, full of justice, in which righteousness would lodge. But now murderers. The city is no longer righteous. Look in Hebrew, tzedek yolinva. Okay, so what does it mean? That in the old days, a person would never go to sleep in Jerusalem with sin in their hands. You hear the words? Righteousness lodged. The word lodged is not like the truth is, the root for a hotel, a malone, is the same here, yolin. But in other words, righteousness slept in her. People would go to sleep righteous. Meaning, Ein Adam Lam B'Yushalayim V'Aver B'Yado. No man, no person would ever go to sleep in Jerusalem with sin in his hand. Okay, now we're going to try to understand what this means. This is the prophet, not me. The Tamid Shel Shachris, that offering that was done in the morning on behalf of the Jewish people, it was Machaper Al Averos Kol Halayla. That atoned for the sins of the entire night, and the offering of the morning, Tamid Shel Arba, that was the morning. Then the Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim, the one that was done later in the afternoon, that's Mechaper Al Kol Averos, that's on the Averos Kol Hayom, of the sins that took place during the day. Okay, follow? When you wake up in the morning, and you know that in the temple, the morning offering is coming to atone for any sin that took place the night before. Comes not for just me, for all the Jewish people. And the next day, later on in the day, before sunset, another offering was made, and that atones for all the sins of the Jewish people through the day. So if you look in Micha, that's how you pronounce it, Micah, chapter 2, verse 1. It says over there, woe to those who devise iniquity and plan evil upon their beds. At the morning light they carry it out, for the power is in their hand. They think about doing evil while they're on their beds. At the morning light, they have the possibility of doing it. From here, what do we know? That the Lila, the night, is not the really time for doing the evil acts. Okay, it's a time to think about it, and our minds are quite alive at night, thinking about devising plans to do the next day, to rob the bank, to, you know what I mean, to steal the car, I don't know, whatever it is that you're thinking about doing, ripping off your business partner, so you can dream all you want at night, but you can't do anything. The buses aren't running, the gas stations are closed. The only thing you do at night is think about it. So the chet, the sin, is on hirhor. Hirhor means thought. That's why the morning is just one. It's just one sin. So you're able, it is possible to have thought without action. It is possible to have thought without action. That's why it says you bring that morning offering. One. It says one. Esakevos echad taseh haboker. You bring the offering which is one in the morning. Kihu mekaper al choshvim ra. It's coming to atone for those who had the evil thoughts while on their bed. The truth is they could have had regret. They could have retracted and done tshuva and never actually did any action the next day. Whatever was in their minds never came out into actuality. That's why it says echad. It's only one. Now we understand also exactly why it says one time the animal is lo hiskar olas haboker kim pam achad. It only mentions it one time. Not only does it say one, but it only mentions it one time. But what about the sins of the day? They're double. Without doubt, they're double. Why? Because even though you thought about doing it at the night to do it, nevertheless, what happened during the day is when you actually did the action, the thought returned. And you did it with thought, because if you did it without thought, you wouldn't be bringing an offering at all. We call that onus. We call that like total accidental. Al kain tzarich hatamid shel bein arbaim lechaper al shtei averos. That's why the late afternoon offering is coming to atone for two types of sins: the thoughts and the actions. Al kain hu nizkar shtei pamim b'parsha. That's why it's also mentioned twice in the chapter. And from the fact that it said, we go back to the Isaiah chapter 1 verse 21, where we understood that a man does not sleep in Jerusalem with sin in his hand. The Kliyakar says, I don't understand. Why doesn't the verse just say that a person doesn't wake up from his sleep? He doesn't get out of his bed with sin in his hand. So the idea of sin in your hand, the language of in your hand, biyado, you know what biyado means? It infers we're speaking about an actual sin that one does with his hands. And if that's the case, we already mentioned that the nighttime, there's no hand, there's no sin in your hand because it's only thought. If there's only thought, there's no sin in your hand. And this comes to help us understand and infer that the tamid, that tamid means the daily offering, is atoning for the sins of the day. We're talking about the late afternoon one. That's why because even though you have both thought and action, the one in the morning is only for thought. It just nails the point down that by the morning one it's only thought, and by the late afternoon one it's for both thought and action. Now we understand also, which I didn't point out to you, but it says Shnaim liyom olat tamid. So if you go to actually the first verse we were discussing, where it mentions 2 a day as a continual burnt offering. That's verse 3. Towards the end of verse 3, in Hebrew it's Shnaim liyom olat tamid. If it says 2 a day, it should have said olos, plural, tamid. It doesn't say olos tamid, it says olat tamid, as if these two things are really two parts of one offering. You follow so far? It's 2 per day, but it's considered one offering. I don't know. I have to check the list of mitzvahs, but I think that it's continual offering, and it's two times. One in the morning, one in the afternoon. It's not 2 separate mitzvahs. You might have thought it's 2 offerings, so you have one in the morning, that's one of the 613, and one in the afternoon is one of the 6. No, it's one offering that has 2 aspects to it, 2 sides of the coin. So what does he say? He said, well, it's very nice that it says olah, singular. It should have said plural. So we're going to investigate why it's singular. And it's going to blow you out of the water. That you have to admit, this question is very good, that what it's really telling you is that each one of these different offerings, one is in the morning and one is in the evening. When I say evening, I mean late afternoon. It's because it atones for something on its own. Each one is atoning for something different. That both of them are really one offering. But he wants to know why does the verse divide it into 2 different times? And he tells you now the reason, when he said before, because the one of the morning atones for the sins of the evening, the night before, and the one of the late afternoon atones for that day. Now this is going to, we didn't even get to the interesting part, that it says in Genesis 1, that's Genesis 1 verse 5, and it was evening, and it was morning, Yom Echad, one day. And we already mentioned, why does it say Yom? Why does it say one day? It should say the first day, the second day, the third day. No, it says Yom Echad, one day, day one, and then the next day it's the second. It should have been consistent, like we said here. Say Rishon, say first, and then second. So the reason why, and this he says, he explained already in Bereshit, in Genesis, is to remove from the hearts of the heretics, of the people who are confused and worship idols, people who are not clear about the oneness of God, to remove from their minds. You know what they would say? Well, you have morning and evening, you have dark, you have light, you have yin, you got yang, you must have two gods. If you got two powers like light and darkness, it means that there's two gods. Right? I know that some certain Christian people think that you need to help God. You actually need to help God fight the devil. God doesn't need your help. God is unbelievably powerful, all-powerful, and He created everything. Everything that is, every power that exists in the world, He created and controls. So this tells you that what? That there is, why does it say there's evening and there's morning one day? One day, not first day, but one day, because that one day has two parts. Don't think that because there's two very opposing parts, that there has to be two deities, that there has to be two creators, that there has to be two gods. No, it's one God that created everything. He not just created everything, He created things that are opposing forces. I'm going to just read the words. So that the heretics don't say, to remove them from saying what I'm about to tell you they say. That whoever created the morning did not create the evening. Because how can it be that comes from one thing, two opposites? Therefore the Torah says, Yom Echad, one day. That the evening and the morning, they're all part of one 24-hour period. And they're all part of one God who created both. And now we understand by this. It says, Olah Tamid, it's one offering, even though one's in the morning and one's in the evening. They both are offered up to the one God. And now, also, the fact that the Tamid offering, you know that there are very specific places that the different offerings are slaughtered. Some are slaughtered in the east, some are slaughtered in the north, some are, right? There's an altar, and there's designated places. The one in the morning is slaughtered in the west. The one in the afternoon is slaughtered in the east. Why is that? Because we already said the one in the morning is coming to atone for the night, the sins of the night. So that's why it's slaughtered in the west. The one in the morning is slaughtered in the west, because where does the sun set? In the west. That's called nighttime. It's coming to teach you the morning offering is atoning for that which happens in the night. And the late afternoon is slaughtered in the east to teach you what? That it's coming to atone for the sins of the entire day that just passed. Where does the day begin? In the east. And then there's a whole nother level to understand. Do you know there are people that worship the sun and the moon? So this is coming to tell you that you slaughter in opposite areas to upset or destroy the thoughts of those who worship the sun and the moon. So in the morning, where do we slaughter? In the west. And in the afternoon, where do we slaughter? In the east. Because these people worship the sun and the moon, they slaughter in the direction, they slaughter their offerings in the directions of their gods. And we are showing the opposite. That rather it's all going to one God, blessed be His name.